Hello and welcome to the third part of the JavaScript series. My name is David Thorne. I'm from Thorne Web Design. Now in the previous tutorial I just gave you a quick short sharp demonstration of how to just use a text input and then manipulate the page by entering the text in when you click a button. Okay, very simple basic stuff, and also how to log it using the console with Firebug in Firefox. Okay, and also showing you an alert box. Now, you noticed in the JavaScript that we're using lots of dots. Okay, dot notation. So like window dot on load, and then submit button dot on click, and console dot log, and parent text dot inner HTML, and person name dot value. Now, what is all this? You know, what does it all mean? What's all this dot stuff mean? And why is there like it before and after and stuff? What is it? Okay, well, don't panic. Okay, this is object orientated programming. Now, if we just put this all down a little bit. Okay, and you think about what an object is. Okay, now let's just take a think about a car. Okay, equals an object. Now, a car has many different properties with inside of it. Now, you could talk about BMW, Mercedes, Toyota, and so on. Now, they're all of type car, right? But they all have different properties. Some are long, some are wide, some are thin, some are expensive, some are, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, but potentially they all come from type car. So really you're making an abstraction of what it is that they've made. Okay, you're removing all fine details, and you're just saying, hey, this is the basic information, this is what it is. So a car, when you remove what actual make it is, you just got to define a few things of what it is. Okay, now with object orientated programming, okay, we can remove the orientated and programming part, and just to understand what the object is. Now, first of all, a car has, let's just say, when we start the thing here, we're just going to say a car has an engine. Okay, car has seats. Car has gearbox. Car has exhaust. Okay, and so on. Car has then windows. Now, all these things. So this is the main object itself is the car, and we're saying, look, a sub-property or another object is the engine, but it's within inside of the car. Okay, so it's a property of the car, but the engine itself is another object, because within inside of the engine, you know, you've got then cylinders. You've got cylinders and so on. Within inside the cylinders, you've got valves and stuff like that. Within inside valves, you've got and so on. So these are all objects or child objects of parent objects, and these child objects also have child objects themselves, or siblings, should we say, of themselves, and so on and so on and so on. Now, the way in object-oriented programming language we denote this is by using the dot notation. Okay, so we say, look, car is the main object. The furthest left item is always the uppermost parent object that it is. Okay, now prior to any object, there's actually the main object, the main parent itself is actually objects. Okay, but you never use the object itself because it's already implicitly a part of objects. Okay, because it's of type object, therefore we don't have to write it. Okay, so we're saying car has a child property of engine, or a child object of engine, and an engine has child objects of cylinders, and cylinders has child objects of valves. Now, these things also then have other properties. They have properties like maybe color, material, look, size, width, height, robustness and stuff like that. So there's lots of other different properties. Now these properties in turn can then be objects, and these objects in turn can have child objects, and these child objects can have in turn properties, and these properties can have in turn child objects. So it's just a continuous like family tree of items that can just keep going down and down and down. Now, although a valve doesn't really inherit anything from the cylinders, and the cylinders don't really inherit anything from the engine doesn't inherit anything from a car, we can now forget about a car object and talk about a family object. Okay, family object. Now let's say you have grandfather. Okay, now the grandfather then has a son. A son then has a grandson. The grandson then has children and stuff like that. Now the grandfather might have a property of hair. Obviously it has a property of hair, and then color equals brown. So we're not saying that brown is actually an object of grandfather, but we're saying it's a characteristic of the grandfather is that he has brown hair. Okay, so the hair has a property of color, okay, and is brown. Now let's go one step further and say the hair has then a length of, let's say, long. Alright, and so on, and then hair style of, let's say, curly. You know, these are parent objects with child objects. These child objects then have a property, which would then be style, would then be a property, and the style is equal to curly. Okay, so this is what object-orientated programming is about. It's about always building up objects as you go along. Okay, now you've either understood this straight away or you haven't understood it at all. Now if you haven't understood it at all, don't worry about it, don't panic, because I didn't understand it the first time, right? It took me a long time to suddenly realise, well, what are you talking about, right? But just remember that if you think about yourself as a human, right, what can we divide the human into? We can divide it into male and female, okay? Then you can think about yourself and what parts of the body can you divide yourself into? The head, the body, the arms, the legs. Which part of the arms can you divide? The forearm, the upper arm, the hand. Which part of the hand can you divide? So, you know, you're talking about finger is a child object of hand. A hand is a child object of the forearm. Forearm is a sub-object of the arm. Arm is an object of the body. Body is an object of the person, and so on. And person is an object of the human. So, this is how basically it works. Okay. So when we come back and look at this quickly, we can see documents. Document is the main parent object of this topic, okay, and it's got then another part. It says get element by ID. Now that's not potentially an object, okay. This is an action, okay. It's a method, it's a function. It's saying, hey, get me something. Alright, so the document then has ways of doing things. It says, it's just like if you imagine you as a person, you want to eat. Okay, eat isn't an object, it's an action. Okay, so you're saying person dot eat. Okay, person dot sleep. Okay, person dot eyes. The eyes are an object, but then you could say person dot head dot eyes dot look. Look would then be a method. It would be an action of what you're doing. Now, to look, you would then need to know, hey, in which direction? Okay, that would then be the likes of information that needs to go inside of the look action. Say, hey, which direction do I need to look? And it says left. Okay, so that's information that we're passing inside to the look. So as the eyes say, hey, okay, I've been commanded to do look, but yeah, I have to ask the question, where do I do this? So the person who's telling them to look needs to tell the eyes where to look. Alright? This is basically this here. We're telling, hey, document, get element by ID. We're giving it a command. Alright? And we're telling them, hey, the element which I want by ID has the ID of person underscore name. Go and get it for me now, please. And once you're done, what I want you to do is I want you to then store it in person name. Well, this equal sign says, what do I have to do? And I say, well, I'll tell you what, when I write equal sign, anything to the right of you, you're going to take the value of it, and then you're going to put it into anything to the left of me. Okay? As simple as that. But that's more about assignment operators. Okay? But it's all about the object orientating is it's difficult to really explain. I think the only way that you can really understand it, if you haven't understood it already, is that pretty much everything within inside of JavaScript is an object, okay, and it inherits from the object class. Okay, there's some other data types which we're going to talk about shortly. The data types come from the objects as well, but they all have different properties, and they have different ways of being used, and there are different rulings of how you can use them and when you can use them. Okay, they have different methods that they can do, different actions and stuff. Alright, so, but I'm going to leave it there. But just remember that JavaScript, okay, is a loosely typed. Okay, and when I say typed, I don't mean type the keyboard. Okay, it's data types. There's different types which we're going to talk about later. It's loosely typed because it doesn't really care. Alright, it just does a lot of stuff for you. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, and it's an object orientated programming language. Okay, now potentially it's a scripting language rather than a compiled language. Alright. So JavaScript never gets compiled; it gets interpreted at runtime. Okay, it's probably even a longer and better sentence to explain what it actually does. But I'm sure you can look on Wikipedia about what it actually does. Okay, that's it for the time being. All right. My name's David Thorne. I really appreciate your time for listening. That's 13 minutes about lots of dots and notations and objects and parents and children and properties and attributes and characteristics and so on. Take a break, walk away, have a cup of tea, coffee, drink, whatever, and try and understand it. Okay? If you don't understand it, fine, leave it. Right? But come back to it later on. All right? It's not the most difficult subject of OOP, object oriented programming, but it's something that really you need to get the idea of what it's about. Right, that's me done. Name's David Thorne. I'm off to make the next tutorial. Bye bye.